loving evangelical-ish. Follow us to catch all the latest.
My bad.
Welcome to Evangelicalish, where we discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly of the American evangelical church, deconstruction, faith, and God's love through it all. Join us for these episodes live on our Evangelicalish YouTube page on Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 Central, and 6 o'clock Pacific. Let's journey together.
Oops, that did not go the way it had played out in my mind.
It was so good. I love that. I love that every week there is some kind of lovable loser kind of stumble into the show. Like we do something every single week that is like, we've never done this before. So, it's like, it's usually me. So it feels good that it wasn't me.
We'll figure out what we're doing. Well, welcome to Evangelicalish, everyone, where we talk about God in this deconstruction world. I am Paul.
I'm April.
And I am Jeremy.
And we are so close to seeing each other in person this weekend. Well, not this weekend, next weekend, right?
Next weekend, yeah.
I'm really interested to know if I've been catfished for the last year and a half. So
I don't know how we would have done that because we just like a deep fake video.
There's AI, yeah, deep fake AI. You think
April is some 72-year-old
or
guy,
man,
or secretly you're both super Christian nationalists and have shrines to Matt Gaetz in your houses, and y'all are going to execute me on your altar of Trump when we get to Nashville.
Now that you bring that up, I do need to come clean. This has been one big ploy. I've been sent by God to convert you both back into the fold.
Oh, good.
Well done.
Yeah,
I've only received 3 emails this week, so you can get in line.
Ooh.
I may reconvert just from that effort on your part. I'm impressed.
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty good. I felt the Holy Spirit for the first time in a long time. No,
Wow.
Plant an affirming faith community in Oklahoma City, and see how many Facebook messages and emails you get from pastors who are concerned about you and saying things like, we believed that you were such a force for the kingdom, and now you've fallen into darkness.
With the libs, brother.
The libs.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I got a message from, I might have said this on the show already. I feel like I've said it somewhere, but I got a message from a guy that I went to college with at Dallas Baptist. He's an SBC pastor now, and he DM'd me, it was a couple months ago, and was like, April, I love your stuff. I am an SBC pastor, and I agree with a lot of what you're saying, but I really have this calling to bridge the divide and the gap, and so we can see things from both sides and learn from each other. And I would just love to have that dialogue with you, and so let me know if you're up for it, and blah blah. And then I messaged him back. I was like, yeah, I'm always down for a good dialogue, but I have had messages like this before, and it just ended up in that person trying to proselytize me back into evangelicalism. And I'm not interested in that. I was an evangelical for 32 years. I know your side. So, but if you really want to have a conversation and it's not about that, I'm totally down. And he never responded.
Yeah.
You should have told him that you were really uncomfortable that he was messaging you without a group message with your spouses.
Yeah. I'm like, does your wife know that you slid into my DMs?
Did your wife know you slid into my DMs? Ask Matt Chandler how that goes. Okay.
Oof. Or Adam Levine.
Or
Adam Levine. Yes.
Adam Levine?
You don't know about that, Jeremy?
No, listen, you know me in pop culture. Come on, April.
Well, it's
you're going to have to
it's
spell
all
it out
over
for
the
me.
interweb.
All I've seen all over the interweb was I was going to say the shit about the Queen, but that feels very disrespectful.
Ooh, ouch.
The stuff about the passing of the Queen. I certainly didn't mean that.
Beecher called me the other day, and I had the news on. And Beecher's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, I'm watching, I think, the 10th funeral."
The 10th funeral. The one in Northern Ireland now.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know what these are. I don't know how this goes on for so long. But
and did you see where the kids and the grandkids just had to stand there for forever?
Yeah.
Not moving?
Well, but that was part of the when she was lying in state. They Harry and William both stood guard over her casket, right?
Yeah.
I saw
and
the
some
best.
of the grandkids too.
And
The best. Go ahead.
Harry was like, I guess the king requested he not wear his military uniform. The guy literally served 2 tours in Afghanistan, for the military, and was not like military. Like, I mean, he was legit, like rose to captain and was, very active. He was basically,
Come on, rose to captain. I'm not buying it.
he did. Read
I'm
the story. Seriously.
All right.
I mean,
I just want to say the best exchange about the whole thing was some older person on Twitter. There was a picture of Meghan Markle and she had her shoulders exposed and she was like, I can't believe she'd wear something so immodest. And someone tweeted back and said, she's American. She has the right to bear arms.
That's fantastic.
It was.
That's really good. But back to Harry, because I appreciated his big fuck you to everybody. He wore his uniform, and he looked like a badass doing it. And I'm partially, I lean towards Harry, just because he and I look like we could probably be long lost brothers. Maybe we are. I don't know. But the red beard and everything. See?
Yeah.
I mean, I could see it.
All right.
He's my doppelganger. Like, I mean, we could just be 6 one way, half dozen the other. So
I'll buy it.
it's a good
I'll
time.
buy it.
Also, I just want to give
Nashville. We will be there on October 1st, and if you're in the area of Nashville, come join us. We'll be broadcasting, or not broadcasting. We'll be recording a live podcast. We'll have a live Q&A session afterwards at the beautiful Lipstick Lounge. Well, we don't know if it's beautiful, but it looks pretty cool. And we're told by Ginny Davis, our help here, that it's one of 21 lesbian-owned clubs in all of America. And so we're very excited. We will be at the Lipstick Lounge on October 1st. We do have a special room rate. You got to get it right away in the hotel. And if
and it closes, I think the night of the 23rd is the last, I think that's the right date, when the hotel room block closes officially.
So that's Friday night.
Yes, Friday.
Okay.
Also, a quick shout out to Ginny, because it's her birthday, her 40th birthday. And we
Yes.
actually haven't mentioned this yet, but Ginny Davis, she shows up in the chat. She has become our little, I feel weird being like,
don't
she's been on a
minimize that.
serve
No.
team. She's been awesome.
She has stepped in as our administrative assistant here.
Yes, that's way better.
Yeah, don't be like our little, like, that's
Well,
so
I didn't
degrading.
want to mean it like
she
that.
she has stepped in and volunteered to take up the administrative assistant role. She is doing a fantastic job. She takes great care of us, and it's just because she believes so passionately in what we're doing and the community that we have here as a part of Evangelicalish. And so, happy birthday to her. We're super grateful for not only the work that she does with Evangelicalish, but the work she does in her community and just inside of this community as well. So, super happy birthday to Jenny.
Yes, and I was going to say something before we started talking about Nashville, and I just have to get it off my chest because it is burning in me like a passion right now. But I would like to give a big fuck you to Matt Walsh for bullying trans kids and their families. I'm
Okay.
so pissed about it. And I don't usually cuss, but Matt Walsh is pissing me off, and all those little conservative pundits that think they can bully trans kids for no reason. They're just inserting themselves into other people's problems when they are the people that are like, leave us alone, and they are making it their business to bully these freaking families when they're just trying to freaking survive. That's it. That's all I wanted to say.
That's fair.
You may need to tell people who Matt Walsh is and what he did.
He is a stupid conservative pundit.
Let's try to keep some sort of journalistic integrity here.
Who made a documentary about what is a woman, and it is stupid AF. And he basically is getting his minions and all these people to bully hospitals that provide trans affirming care to trans. There's like no surgeries to trans families and kids and trans people. And literally these hospitals, workers and families are getting death threats. These are hospitals. They are going after freaking hospitals.
Apparently, they went after Vanderbilt there in Nashville, right? And so while I too think Matt Walsh can eat an entire bag of male genitalia, I also have very mixed feelings about Vanderbilt Hospital because of what they did to a nurse here recently. And so, it's kind of it's a very strange situation. They hung a nurse out to dry, and she was criminally charged, and the hospital didn't back her up because it was bad for their bottom line. So that's also true. And but yeah, Matt Walsh, good buddies with Ben Shapiro, works with he's done work with Turning Point USA.
Yeah, his followers also called in a bomb threat to the Boston Children's Hospital as well.
Yeah, so long story short, he's a trash human. But and also he's got one of those attitudes that's like he just thinks he's better than everybody else. And like this, like his whole documentary is just him
he also
smugly looking at people.
He also recently tweeted, someone in the chat just said it, that the Little Mermaid couldn't be black because of biology and like science. Like with his whole face.
It's a goddamn mythical creature. Like, what does he mean?
Yeah, no, these people are awful. They have nothing better to do than to make actual human beings part of their culture war so that they can keep making stupid documentaries and all their little cult following buy it and eat it up. And people actually are getting in dialogues and they say things like, hey, here's the science behind this. Trans kids, blah, blah, blah. And then they just quote tweet and be like, pronouns in bio. And it's like, as soon as, like, that's all they respond to. And I'm so annoyed with people quote tweeting me being like, pronouns in bio. Like, yes, I have pronouns. We all fucking have pronouns. Get over it. I'm very worked up tonight.
You are. Nice. So evangelicalish.com is where you can go to sign up for Nashville. Okay. I got the promo in. Evangelicalish.com. That's where you can sign up to join us in Nashville.
All right. I appreciate you landing that plane. It was a crash landing, but it was a landing nonetheless.
I've been very worked up. So
no way. We don't believe you.
There's a lot to be worked up, and particularly where you live, April, Tennessee has gone a little bit fucking apeshit.
Yeah. So another thing that has been happening, I made a video that's been going viral today. I posted it on TikTok last night, so it's been like 24 hours. And it's going viral on TikTok, Reddit, Instagram, and Twitter. So it's like is that like a quadruple double in basketball? I don't know what that means. But anyway, the gist of it is in Tennessee, they are making every Tennessee resident get new license plates this year. And they look the same. They're identical looking. The only difference is when you go, you can either register online to get your new plates or you can go in person to the DMV. And you choose whether or not you want just your standard plate or your standard plate, but it says "In God We Trust." Those are your two options. And a lot of people are going to the DMV in person. Like we recently had to get a trade in our car, got another car, and in the paperwork, the guy was like asked us, "Do you want "In God We Trust" on your license plate?" And I immediately was like, "No." And then he gave me was like, "Whoa," was not prepared for my immediate no. But yeah, it's also just weird that you're being asked or filling it out. So, but I still didn't think much of it because the "In God We Trust," like the actual words are pretty small. Like you'd have to get pretty close to the car to notice. You can't tell from a huge difference. But then, and actually Jenny was the one who informed me of this. I hadn't noticed. But depending on which one you chose, if you get "In God We Trust," if you choose that one, numbers come first on the license plate and letters come second. If you get it without, letters come first and numbers come second, which makes it very easy to spot which one you chose. And there's already been like Facebook groups of people, like there was a post that was like, "Oh, it's so great to see so many numbers first plates around here," which is the "In God We Trust." There's already an article out there that lists the percentage of like most godly counties, depending on how the percentage of people that chose In God We Trust. And there are vanity plates that you can upcharge to pay for, but standard plates that are the same price, In God We Trust or not. And it's just weird. It's weird. And so people asked, obviously, the Department of Revenue, like, hey, why'd you do that? And they said it was in order to accommodate all Tennessee drivers. But if you just did a combination of 3 letters and 4 numbers, you would be able to have up to like 175 or 176 million options. And there's not even 7 million people that live in Tennessee. So, and then since I posted the video, a couple other people have been like, oh, well, it was probably just so they didn't have to have duplicates. So they wouldn't have duplicates of the plates. But that still seems suspicious because I know there's plenty of other places that have In God We Trust or not, or like variations of plates that don't have to have such an obvious switch. So, and also, why would you have duplicates? Like, you literally have 176 options with one way. With both ways, you're probably close to 1 trillion different options.
And you can get In Allah We Trust or In Yahweh We Trust.
Not 1 trillion.
Of course.
Right. No, it's just In God We Trust or nothing.
Oh, so no Allah, no Yahweh, no Buddha, no.
How about in white
in
Jesus
science? Yeah, in white Jesus.
So, yeah. I mean, what does that feel like, April? Like the state is profiling non-Christians.
Yeah. Well, regardless of their reason, even if they have a legitimate reason, maybe they do, maybe they don't. But let's say that they do have a legitimate reason. The result of this is going to be that people can tell from a distance whether or not that person has an In God We Trust plate or not, which means cops pulling over tickets if you have a nationalistic cop, and more than likely in this area, it's going to be a conservative Christian, because that's the majority of people in Tennessee that identify that way. Are they going to start profiling cars based on religious and non-religious? Probably, because I don't care your reason. The result is going to be you are now divided people and you've labeled people.
In the words of the great Ron White, that's profiling, and profiling is wrong.
Yeah.
It's interesting that people that claim to be constitutionalist get really fuzzy on that establishment of religion thing. Like the government is to endorse no religion. Mm-hmm. Yet, is this not a specific endorsement of a specific religion?
They're not fuzzy on it. They're very clear. They want this to be a theocracy.
Yeah.
And they mean religious freedom for those who are Christians. What they really mean is just freedom for Christians. Mm-hmm. Is what they really mean. Not just religious freedom. They only want freedom for white cishet Christians, and they want it all led by white cishet men. That's what they want.
It's like the supporter of Doug Mastriano said the other day. It's a Christian nation. It's not that we don't want Jewish people to live here. You can live here, but it's a Christian nation, and you'll gather from the benefits of our Christianity in our nation. That was said literally out loud on a recorded segment of a podcast.
Oh my gosh.
And so I think that's the biggest thing that's missing. People who have this mentality of that America is some Christian nation clearly don't understand how the founding worked. So here's a great comment, right? Like no national religion, no state denomination, right? So they literally wanted true religious freedom. In other words, freedom of or freedom from religion, both of those things true. Listen, they would crucify Thomas Jefferson today. Like they would. He tore out pages of the Bible, marked out entire chapters because he didn't agree with all of it. And all of our founders agreed on the fact that, people should be able to express themselves the way that they feel led. And so, there's obviously a lot of very complicated depth inside of our history, but to say that we are founded as a Christian nation on Judeo-Christian principles is not correct. We are founded on a lot of things, but it is a mixture and a melting pot of those things. And so, that has just become some giant false elephant that they try to trumpet.
Also, the whole, the "In God We Trust" motto was not a motto nationally. It wasn't voted on as a motto until the 1950s. It wasn't established on the money officially until the 1950s. One nation under God, the under God, was not put in the pledge until the 1950s, and it was all part of Billy Graham and, was it Woodrow Wilson? Who was the president at the time? I don't know. One of those.
Dwight D. Eisenhower.
It was Dwight Eisenhower.
Eisenhower, that's who it was.
Yeah.
But they made like a evangelical Republican pact, and that was part of what started. I mean, Christian nationalism already exists, but that was really the start of it when people started saying we were a Christian nation.
And Lori's right; it was an anti-communism. Move.
The Cold War really ramped up what would later McCarthyism what would later become what is the breed of modern day Christian nationalism, was this anti-communist, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, very capitalist. So a lot of that led by the boomers, right, as they started to grow and, become folks that were leading in areas. As that started to happen, we began to have those kinds of things begin to rise. So absolutely. All of that leads us to Christian nationalism where we are today. But you've been seeing it coming forever. I mean, you want to talk about our nation being founded on Christian principles. Tell me more about that. While it was built on the backs of slaves, what Christian principle is that? And
not even to mention the indigenous people that we just slaughtered and then moved to very small sections of our country.
Yeah. Well, yes. I live in Oklahoma. Very familiar with the Trail of Tears because it ended here. And, the native culture here is absolutely incredible, and I'm grateful for it. But, yeah, I mean, yeah. Tell me more about this Jesus thing when we're stealing land. That's literally what happened, is just steal indigenous folks' land. I mean, it wasn't even ours to begin with. Thou shalt not steal. I remember that reading that somewhere.
It's like somebody was telling me about people coming illegally to the country the other day, and I said, well, was it legal when white Euros landed and just started killing people to take states? Were we legal immigrants at the time?
And started passing out sexually transmitted diseases like candy. I mean, listen, it's absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, colonizer Jesus is my favorite version, Paul says.
I mean, it's crazy. We had one of those, culture warriors in our local city council, and he fought to get "In God We Trust" put on the wall of our city hall, the council chambers of our city hall. And so if you walk in there, it says "In God We Trust" real big on the wall. And I was just saying at the time to this city council member who's Catholic, instead of trying to put "In God We Trust" on the wall, how about living as if people understand that you trust in God? How about leading like somebody would say, oh, that guy must be a godly man? That would be better than fighting to put "In God We Trust" on the wall.
That's the issue, though, right? Is that so often it comes back to, and I love that, Kayla, which, by the way, speaking of the one, the only amazing Jenny Davis, I actually got a shirt that says that on there from Jenny the other day. But I think that boils down to something that we joke about a lot is, people who are the loudest, so often, are trumpeting something or pushing against something because it's, it's something that they cannot legitimately live out. It's kind of like Madison Cawthorn screaming about how terrible, the gay community is and this, that, and the other. Will come to find out Madison Cawthorn doth protest a little too much. You know what I'm saying? And so I think it's a lot easier to just say the things that sound good than it is to actually live up to the standard.
Yeah. I'm a little bit nervous, April, coming back to Nashville. Like, do I need to get a fake passport and not let people know I'm from California when I come in there?
There's a lot of people moving here from the conservative area of California, so they'll probably just think you're one of those.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Good.
They'll think you're one of those.
I was listening to a podcast with the governor of Wisconsin, a Democrat who's running, for re-election. And he said with the overturning of Roe v. Wade with the Dobbs case in SCOTUS, that Wisconsin is now governed by an abortion law that was written in 1849. That's now the abortion law of the state. And the Republican candidate for office of governor of Wisconsin says, sounds good to me.
Oh my gosh.
What a wild ride that is. That is pre-Civil War.
If we're saying take us back to the 50s Republicans, we may be talking about the 1850s. Not the 1950s.
But they would love that. They would love that.
What do we even do? What do we do? How do we get out of this?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just to continue to bring awareness, to have conversations, to raise our kids to be more tolerant, to be more loving, to be more understanding. Because one thing I know for sure is while three of us sit here and we talk about, we grew up in this toxic evangelical culture and conservative evangelical culture, I know for a fact I've got 4 kids who are not growing up in that culture. And so the best thing I can do is replace myself with 4 kids. You know what I'm saying? And it's not like, I'm not trying to be like the weird, quiverful, Christians, the way we win the world is have more children. I'm just saying we teach with our lives, with our actions, with our words better. And by doing that, we empower a future of something better than what we have now. Yeah. And that is the long game, obviously. But my kids are going to grow up not hearing me say that they can't, in high school, they can't go to prom with a girl that is not white. My son's not going to hear me say that. I heard that, but my son's not going to hear that. They're going to hear that whoever you love is who you love. Whatever you want to wear to school is what you wear to school, Yeah. So I think it is just that work, and we've got to be willing to be in the long haul to put in that work, because we're not going to fix it overnight. And there's no magic wand we can wave at it. We got here over a period of time. Now we're going to have to work our way out.
Yeah. Little by little.
What do you think, April? How are you handling all of that?
Well, it's weird living in Tennessee, where I feel like I'm being marked now. I'm, got my letters first. I said I believe in God, but I did not put "In God We Trust" on mine, because I don't need a license plate to speak for me. I don't need the government to speak for me and my beliefs, and I don't like profiling. Anyway, I'm just, I'm raising my kids. I'm trying to be as kind as possible to the people around me and bringing awareness to stuff, and humorously showing how harmful a lot of this is, because sometimes I think humor is a little easier to digest for people that are still a little bit in it. So yeah, just chipping away, just trying little by little.
When you read through the Old Testament, you see the followers of God again and again, falling into captivity. Then they get released and they're like, yay, we're gonna be good people and follow God. And then things start going well again. And the next thing you know is you have another Old Testament prophet saying, hey, you've forgotten the poor, justice for the marginalized, the foreigner and the economically disadvantaged, and the culture falls. It's also the history of the world that when cultures get fat and successful and full of themselves, they come to a crashing end. And so knowing biblical history and world history, and I know this sounds a little nihilistic, but I don't think, Billy Graham used to always say about, gay marriage, that if God doesn't punish America, he's going to have to apologize to Sodom and Gomorrah. And I would say, if there is a God and he deals with the world as does in the Bible, then it is just a natural wind down for America a little bit. And maybe the only thing that can change is a little bit of cultural collapse every once in a while. So people start to get out of that comfort zone of being fat and lazy, or generations have to pass away. But so I feel like this is not a slide as a culture we're going to be able to change necessarily. But like you say, we make our difference in our sphere where we can, and we just hope we can tell a few people in the middle of it all, hey, you don't have to think this way. That's not God asking you to be a supporter of these terrible people.
Most, and something I remind people all the time is that most major empires, just being the history nerd that I am, most major empires that we've seen throughout world history rise and fall within 250 years as the world's superpower, right? The superpower mantle is passed. That doesn't mean that countries don't remain, in some sort of stability or find stability again, but it just means, here is the world's superpower, biggest, strongest military, money, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Most world superpowers last about 250 years. I mean, you can look it up, and America is 244 years old.
Yeah, we're coming up on 250 here.
And it all comes down the same way. It was the same thing that happened with Rome, right? It was the infighting, right? It was the bickering between, probably a lot of the same issues we deal with now. So, listen, I've told people that I would not be surprised in our lifetime if the United States is the 50 states that we see it as today, looked different, Yep.
This is a little bit out of order from our rundown, but since we're on this Christian nationalism, did you guys see Trump and his rally this week? I got to show you guys this video. If you haven't seen it yet, anybody who's out there,
please show us.
Be prepared to cringe. This is from the Young Turks, by the way, showing this.
We are a nation that allowed Russia to devastate a country, Ukraine, killing hundreds of thousands of people, and it will only get worse. It would never have happened with me as your commander-in-chief.
Oh my God, Jesus Christ.
And for 4 long years, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that. So for those that are listening on the podcast and couldn't see the video, if you didn't see it previously, it's a Trump rally, and there is like pad keyboard music in the background, just like your traditional evangelical altar call. And the crowd all has one arm up and one finger up in the air in like a weird, I don't know, is that a salute? I don't know what they're doing. Very culty.
It's a one-arm salute with a one finger in the air. Now, my understanding is, and I haven't verified this completely yet, but I've heard it from more than one person today, is that song that they're playing, the artist is listed as WWG1WGA, which is QAnon speak for where we go one, we go all. So it's a QAnon attributed song that Trump is playing at his rally, and the people are doing a one symbol. So
I didn't realize it was the QAnon song.
Yeah.
So that makes it worse.
It always seemed like Trump was a little bit hesitant to fully embrace QAnon, but
because he was running for re-election.
Yeah.
And he was afraid of losing votes from anybody who was kind of middle conservative. And now he's just fully embraced it because he knows he's leading a militia of, and it's a militia. He's leading a militia of, QAnon conspiracy theorists, these absolutely ridiculous, I don't even know what to really call them, but, uneducated individuals. And so it's been interesting to kind of watch this play out, but you say he was a little bit hesitant to embrace it. He was also really hesitant to denounce it,
right,
as well. And I think that spoke more volumes to me, right?
Well, it's the same thing with David Duke when he was first running. Remember, it took him forever to denounce or to disavow David Duke's, who was the leader of the KKK's, endorsement.
Yeah, well,
it took him like several times before he finally was like, "Oh, I disavow."
And then like the deal that happened, what in Charleston, Virginia, right?
Mm-hmm. Where he was very fine people on both sides.
Yeah, very fine people on both sides. Mm-hmm. Don't want to take any sides here, but there were good folks on both sides. That speaks volumes for you to look at a bunch of white nationalists, hate militias, and say, there were still some good folks over there. That tells me that behind the scenes, that they're your base and you support them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it not only is it cringy from a nationalist perspective, but like Jennifer said in the comments, it was kind of like an altar call. It was kind of like our everything bagel altar call. Mm-hmm. It's just really creepy. But what do you guys think about there is, I don't know if you've ever heard of Godwin's law. Godwin's law is everything gets compared back to Nazi Germany. Mm-hmm. and it's way overplayed sometimes, but there are times these days when I start to look at a rally like that. Doug Mastriano, the Republican candidate for governor in Pennsylvania, that had people stretch out their right hand, and marking license plates in Tennessee. And we can look at all these things and sort of laugh at it and say, oh, Godwin's law, let's point it back to Nazi Germany. But at some point, I mean, maybe was there a time in the late 30s of Germany when people were saying, oh, don't be crazy. That Hitler guy, he's not going to do all this stuff.
Well, I think that's part of the eeriness is that, a lot of times when people compare it to Nazi Germany, you're thinking Holocaust, right? And those comparisons are usually in bad taste because nothing can really compare to the Holocaust. But there was years prior to that of just frog in the pot, barely turning it up, where, if people were paying attention, maybe they noticed, but it wasn't until it got really bad that people were like, oh gosh.
Well, and I mean, the thing to remember is that Hitler didn't come out immediately saying, like, he wasn't giving the punchlines at the beginning, right? It was a slow fade. It was a slow turn. The thing that made Hitler really enticing for so many Germans, and what eventually took, because a lot of people were like, you'll read from historians at the time or whatever who said, they weren't afraid of some of his more extreme ideas because there were checks and balances in place. But then he became, Grand Fuhrer or whatever, like became the ruler. And there was no check and balance. It was just whatever he said went, and he usurped power. And so, it was this turn up from, there were good people on both sides to just like, we're straight up playing the song, holding the fingers up, and it just continues from there. What I will say is, interestingly enough, here in Oklahoma, we have a major issue going on with our Secretary of Education here being a major Trump supporter, and has revoked or is seeking to revoke the licenses of teachers who have provided like QR codes to the Brooklyn Library so they can read books that have been banned here in Oklahoma. Yeah. On that banned list is Writing by Maya Angelou. On that banned list is also To Kill a Mockingbird. Let me tell you what is not banned here in Oklahoma. Mein Kampf, which is Hitler's memoir. Oh. So a student can go to the public library system here in Oklahoma, and they can obtain a copy of Hitler's memoirs and writings, but they cannot go get a copy of To Kill a Mockingbird. So, yes, I think that a lot of times people throw up the, oh, this is like Nazism. Oh, this is like, because it's why Stephen A. Smith is so popular on ESPN, right? Just the biggest, boldest, craziest take is the thing that gets all the attention, whether you agree with it or not. But here, I feel like we have a legitimate situation where we are building to a place that could, at very least, lead to the splitting or the dividing of our country, and at the most could lead to a dictatorship, a civil war, those kinds of things.
And if all of that seems dramatic and overblown, the Republicans are now trying to make sure they can win elections, and every election they lose can be overturned by state legislatures. They are taking over state legislatures one by one through a long game work they've been doing for a long time under this Christian nationalist idea, and trying to make sure that they, as an ever shrinking minority party, their support is getting smaller and smaller all the time. They're trying to make sure through things like the Electoral College and legislatures changing voting rules to make sure they can be a minority party perpetually in power. And this is how it's happened. This is the authoritarian playbook through all of history. And I just think it's really important that we pay attention right now, that this is happening. And Christians now are embracing Christian nationalism. For a long time, we could say Christian nationalists, and Christians would say, oh, that's not us, that's not us. And now we're seeing the Marjorie Taylor Greens and Lance Wallnows and Doug Mastrianos embracing the term of Christian nationalism. And it has me a little bit, well, more than a little bit worried about the future of us as a culture and a country.
Well, it definitely just feels like things are moving to some kind of breaking point, because you have the right is moving further right, and they're showing that they are unwilling to make compromises on things, mainly human right type issues. And the left isn't going to compromise on human rights issues. And so we're just coming, when you have people like Matt Walsh and a lot of conservatives that don't believe trans kids even exist, that they believe it's some type of grooming, that it's some type of abuse, we're at an impasse. Like, I don't know how to convince someone of someone else's humanity.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. That's the nail on the head. Once somebody gets to the place where they refuse to see the humanity in other humans, that is at the very best a lost cause. Because they're refusing. And at some point I have to dust my feet off and walk away. I mean, even Jesus talks about that, right? Like, if they're not going to receive this message of love and grace and kindness, then I'm going to dust my feet off and go to the next town because they just don't want it. And they want to talk about grooming. The first stop that they need to make is at their buddy Matt Gaetz's office. That's a great place to start,
or
with
the
grooming
Southern Baptist
conversation.
Convention,
or the SBC. Fuck the SBC.
Or Hillsong.
Churches all over the country. Yeah.
Catholic priests.
Let me tell you what's crazy. Okay, so we started a in-person faith community here in Oklahoma City because there were just so many people who were desperate together in a loving and compassionate way, and we were working on getting our liability insurance, and the insurance company was shocked for two reasons. Number one, because we said that we would not provide or need coverage for any sort of pastoral counseling because we will refer to professionals. the second thing is that they were shocked that we required background checks for all of our volunteers, not just volunteers who work with kids, and full background checks, sex offender lists, state and federal registries. So they literally, she emailed me and was like, I didn't, most churches don't do this. Are you sure this is something you're going to provide? And I was like, absolutely. There will be a paper trail. Because it is rampant. Paul, you're exactly right. It is rampant. Throw a rock, hit a church with an abuse scandal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've kind of thrown away the format of the show because we didn't hit the mid-roll, but this thing with Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, sending asylum seekers from Venezuela in Texas, not even in Ron DeSantis' state. He said he couldn't get enough immigrants in his own state to make the stunt look, get attention. So he pays for asylum seekers, not illegals, asylum seekers in Texas to be flown to Martha's Vineyard without notice to the folks of Martha's Vineyard that they're coming. And any Christian, and DeSantis claims to be one, who would endorse that behavior, would say that's okay, would say, oh, it's just politics. You got to check your heart. Something is wrong with you. You have lost your ability to see human beings as humans.
Exactly. Every single one of those asylum seekers is a human being with parents, friends, siblings trying to find their way here. We don't know why they're here. It has to be you have to go through some kind of awful situation to where you would risk crossing a border into a country where you don't know anybody. And then
they're from Venezuela, by the way, April, the country that conservatives tell us is like the scariest country in all the Western Hemisphere.
Right. Like they have legitimate reasons and they are here legally because seeking asylum is very legal. It's a very legal thing to do. And then to just treat them like pawns on a game board. Like they are made in the image of God.
That was the domino that this one really hit home for me. That was the domino that fell for me when, growing up in a very conservative place, in a very conservative family, I became really good friends with. One of my best friends in high school was a girl who, during our sophomore year, moved from Venezuela. Her dad was a government worker there, and they fled the country because of the upheaval there. And, she's a pharmacist here now and is an incredible, just an incredible human. But that was when my whole heart changed as far as what it looks like to open our borders to people who are seeking a better life for themselves and their families.
Yeah. It's also really pissing me off too, how Ron DeSantis was his plan was that he'd send him to Martha's Vineyard, which is an island, a small island.
Yeah.
And knew that they would eventually have to get off of the island because it's a small island. They were ill prepared. But their conservatives and Fox News are spinning some kind of narrative like, see, Martha's Vineyard doesn't want the immigrants either. When in reality, the people that live at Martha's Vineyard, they dropped everything. There was a church that opened. They got clothes. They gave them food for as long as they could until they asked
That's right.
They asked them there's not really a lot of places to stay here. You would be more accommodated in the mainland, and then that's why they went to the mainland. And conservatives are spinning it of see, they don't want them either. And it's like, no, they actually did the thing that Christ would want you to do and accepted them with zero heads up. It's Martha's Vineyard. They're not expecting people to come. There's no border. It's an island.
Yeah.
And by the way, they're not a sanctuary city either.
Yes.
It's just the whole thing is such a crazy fiasco. And it's interesting to me. I always look at, if I can reference something from the Bible real quick, since I am the false prophet here. The Christian nationalist belief the racist, divisive, exclusive nationalist beliefs of Christians absolutely mirrors the beliefs of the people that Jesus called whitewashed tombs in the first century. And in John 11, we see this where they're talking, the council of the Pharisees and the priests and everybody gets together, the high council, and Jesus has raised Lazarus from the dead, and his following is getting big. And so they're getting together to say, what do we do about this guy? And it says in John 11, verse 48, this jumped out at me a few years ago, and I had never seen it before. It says, if we allow him, Jesus, to go on like this, soon everyone will believe in him. Then the Roman army will come and destroy both our temple or our religion or our place and our nation. And Caiaphas, who was high priest at this time, said, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't realize that it's better for you that one man should die for the people than the whole nation be destroyed. These guys were religious nationalists. They believed that the plan of God in their season was make Israel great again, and that God's plan could only exist on earth if Israel was the economic and military power of the world. It is the exact same belief of Seven Mountains evangelicals today.
1,000%. Yeah, that's exactly right.
And Jesus wasn't on board.
I don't think they really read the words of Jesus.
And those are the guys that the story tells us sent Jesus to the cross.
My favorite thing is the cherry picking. Like you'll say, well, Jesus never addressed gay marriage, for example, right? And they'll come back with, well, he said, that a man should leave his father and mother to cleave to his wife. And I'm like, yeah, but think about the context of like the people that he was talking to in that moment, like, and the cultural context, like all of these things like that is not a condemnation of any type of marriage. He's just giving an example, right? Like they twist and manipulate and weaponize Jesus without really understanding the whole ministry. They are the religious establishment of the day. And
miss that Jesus was critiquing divorce. A sin that the church has made absolute comfort with now.
Oh yeah, they're all good with that
because that's a sin they do.
Yes,
a quote unquote sin. I'm not saying it's a sin.
They don't even
what they
care.
And the other thing they'll do, Jeremy, is say, well, Jesus wrote all the Bible. So if it's in 1 Corinthians, Jesus wrote that.
It was God breathed.
I had a guy comment, it was literally Jesus's words. I'm like, no, it wasn't. No. That's not what literally means. Bucko.
So the follow-up question to that always is, so then if you're a follower of Jesus, do you eat shrimp?
Do
you sell your raped daughter to her rapist?
And then they want to go off into the old covenant versus the new covenant thing. And so I always come back with, and I've had the privilege the last few times of having a conversation with like pastors who have women pastors on their staff. And I'm like, well, Paul said they should be silent and submissive and cover their heads. Are they doing any of that? And well, no, but that was cultural. And I'm like, oh, so that is cultural, right? That's cultural.
That's what they say. The sins of the things that they do, they're like, no, that was just a cultural issue.
No, that was a culture thing, but none of the rest of it is. Like, it is all about just whatever makes you uncomfortable. And they will absolutely put a wall up, literally, figuratively, any type of way against things that make them uncomfortable, and don't continue to allow the cis-het white males to hold power. And that's why they have pushed so hard against deconstruction. It's the reason that Matt Chandler thinks it's some sort of sexy thing to do. Because I can never not see that video and then like just existential crisis. It felt so 1-900, like it was ridiculous. That was to this day one of my favorite videos of yours. But
same, actually, it was fun.
Between that one and the you redid the Newsboys song, I thought that was really
Tupac's Not Dead.
Tupac's Not Dead.
I need to repost that one.
Which he's not. But that's the reason they're so scared of it, is because they know that it's taking power from them. And that's ultimately what it has always been about, is controlling the power, holding the power. And so if we have to become inclusive, if we have to begin loving people who don't look like us, act like us, talk like us, dress like us, marry like us, right? If we have to begin loving those people, and they then have an equal seat at the table and the conversation, an equal voice, then all of a sudden my voice is not as important as it has always been, and people will clutch, and so it's greed and ego that drive it all, right? It's pride that drives it all, and they have disconnected and depersonified anybody who doesn't look like them, because they, I was talking to Amy earlier on a live stream on TikTok. It's really easy to hate people that you don't associate yourself with. Mm-hmm. If I don't have gay friends, then it can be them. But then all of a sudden, if I have gay friends or a gay sibling or something like that, it's amazing how quick your mentality changes.
Well, it's also like that quote, and I don't know who originally said this, or I would quote them, but that equality feels like oppression to the oppressor.
All day.
Oh, somebody had an incredible video about the black, person of color playing the mermaid, and it's like, white people are losing their shit. Like, what kind of world is it when a Disney character isn't white? What white characters do we have left? And the guy's like, well, Cinderella, Snow White, Belle. He's listing all these,
all of the other ones. Yeah.
And she's like, well, thank God we have Jasmine. And she's like, Jasmine is white, right? Jasmine is white. That's because yes, it's so funny and so poignant, because white Eurocultural Christians, and sometimes even people who aren't white, still become white culturally, and when they feel like they're losing their power,
they don't understand,
they claim they're being oppressed.
That's right, and they don't understand representation and how it matters either, because they've always been represented.
Right.
In every corner of society, they've always been represented. So I shot a video the other day, but I was thinking about this. Like, I was like, this backlash is ridiculous. But then I thought about like my three girls and their favorite, and not all Disney, because I don't think Lucky from Spirit is a Disney thing, but their favorite, like, princesses or heroes or whatever it is, and it is all characters who resemble them, and so, and who look like them. And they will tell you that. Like, my youngest is blonde haired, blue eyed, and she's like, Elsa's my girl. Like, cause Elsa looks like me. My middle daughter is, half Afghani. So she's like dark olive skin, black hair, gorgeous black hair, right? She really connects with Moana, and she'll tell you it's because Moana looks like me, right? Mm-hmm. So these things matter, but for people who don't care because they've been represented, so they don't care about representation, then they are lost at that point. It is lost.
It's just that it's white privilege. It's the privilege of not knowing what it's like. It's just but it's also just, you don't know what it's like to not be represented. You have the privilege that you don't even know what that's like. So you don't think it's a big deal because you don't think about it.
Well, I mean, white men in America have never needed an amendment to the Constitution to get rights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the entire thing was written for them, or us. It was written for me, right? It wasn't written for you, April. You needed an amendment just to vote and own land. And later on, you needed a law to have your own credit card, right?
Yes, very aware of that.
It wasn't. So it's really easy to say, whoa. Traditionally, this is what we do. Well, yeah, traditionally, it was for people like me only.
Yeah.
And so and it's the lack of diversity in thinking, in education, in relationships. That's where the problem lies. And ultimately, at the end of the day, if I can disassociate myself from any diversity, then I can continue to sit back here in the cut and just be like, you know what? This is not how we do things around here.
I also just want to point out, too, that a lot of these people during the Black Lives Matter movement were trying to convince us all that we shouldn't see color and that they don't see color, when clearly they very much do see color.
The important thing about, on the Christian nationalist thing is, my wife was an elected official, and if I can say with all pride as a husband, she was fairly well known and still is being sought after to run for office in our state. And so every one of these prophets, these governmental prophets, Lance Wallnau, if you know who he is, they all wanted to get connected to her because they love to be saddled up to power. And so Lance Wallnau reached out to us by email and through a friend, and he was talking about the 7 mountains, take the spheres of culture, the 7 influential spheres of culture for God. And so I emailed him back, because I was the one who sort of played gatekeeper for my wife, and said, well, love it. We would love to sit down with you. But just so you know, we believe Christians should serve culture, not take power over it.
Yes.
Jesus told us to serve. Jesus changed the world by dying for the people that, weren't in the same religion and the same race and the same nationality as him. And that's what we believe. So, and then we never heard back from Lance Wallnau.
Of course. So
this has been coming and being built and planned for a long time. And I'm in this weird position because as a pastor, I was always saying, hey, we shouldn't be Republican or Democrat. We should be from the kingdom of heaven and be above this stuff. But I'm in a season where I'm like, I think if you love Jesus, you got to vote Democrat, because it's our only choice at this point, or else we're voting for horrible, amoral people like Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump to be in office. And so I hate to be that guy. And and trust me, I see all the warts of the Democratic Party. But this has been a planned long game from way back in the Nixon era for Christians to take over power in the country. And we're seeing it come to fruition now. And they are all into it and all for it. And if good people don't stand up against it, it will be a major problem for the next generation or two to come.
Which, by the way, shout out April for making me have to delete a TikTok video, by the way, because you had a really great thought hours before I did, talking about how, the I don't see color people all of a sudden just so see color. I shot a video, almost that exact same thing. And then I started scrolling Twitter. And I noticed you had tweeted it probably, 5 hours before I'd shot that video. And I was like, well, that's stealing her work. So
you could have still, there are a lot of people that had similar thoughts.
I get it. But you know what? I think sometimes clearing the road for, somebody who had the voice and the idea first matters. And so anyway,
that was one of that tweet. I think that might be my most viral tweet so far. Had 5,000 likes, which is a lot for Twitter for me.
shout out to you too on that, because that was a really great point. And
because it also had just happened with Rings of Power too, because they had black elves and black hobbits, and people were mad about that too because it wasn't historic.
Mythical
Middle Earth doesn't even
creatures.
Middle Earth doesn't even exist. As much as I wish it did.
It reminds me of the people who say, "When is White History Month? When does White History Month happen?"
Oh my gosh, yeah, missing with that.
I shot a video about that a while back. I was like, you don't need to worry about having a month. When you control the calendar.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
You control the calendar.
Yeah, that's true. So just to remind everybody, Nashville is not this weekend, but the next weekend, Saturday, October 1st. Doors open at 4. right? Is that what we said?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Doors
that's
open
right.
at 4. What time does our show start? I feel like
5.
It's our show starts at 5.
Yep.
Doors open at 4. Show starts at 5 at the Lipstick Lounge in Nashville. Go to evangelicalish.com to register. You can register for free if you'd like to help us out and give us some money to help pay for this in our way and stuff. Please feel free to do that, but you do not have to. And next Wednesday, we will not have a show since
Correct.
we will be getting ready for our live show. And if you've joined our ish community, which you can also do on the website, we will have a private interview that Paul and I did with, what was her name, Paul?
Catherine Stewart, the author of The Power Worshippers.
Yes. Catherine Stewart. I knew it was started with a K. Catherine Stewart. She has been, she's a journalist. She's been writing about Christian nationalism for years. And Paul and I sat down and talked with her. So we're going to release that interview early with our ish community. So hopefully sometime this week. And so be on the lookout for that. We'll release that, later for everybody else.
Yeah, really, really excited about that. I've got two upcoming trips to the great state of Tennessee over the next couple of weekends. I'll be there on Saturday in Columbia. Excited about that. We're gonna rally in support of the library because they're trying to ban books in Tennessee too. Imagine that. And so that'll be good. And then, excited. So if I get to see people twice, like that'd be extra fun. But, anyway, yeah, come to the Lipstick Lounge October 1st. We would love to see you there. It's going to be a really good time. And you're going to get to see, Paul sing karaoke.
Come on. You got
Come
it.
on.
All right.
What's that?
What'd you say your go-to was? I think you mentioned this maybe last show.
I can do anything from Elvis or Mac the Knife from Frank Sinatra. Those are my go-tos.
Anything from Elvis?
Anything from Elvis.
Oh, I'm going to be scouring the Elvis discography over the next.
A little teddy bear, or
do you get you get into it, get the all that?
It may depend on how many bourbons you get in me. We'll see.
Well, don't threaten me with a good time, Paul Swearingen. I will absolutely take you up on that.
I cannot wait to see everybody in person. So if you're anywhere near Nashville, come join us. Evangelicalish.com is the website to sign up. We've got 32 people signed up already. It's going to be a big bash. It's going to be fun.
We'd love to hit 40 or 50.
Yeah.
Be that guy, be that girl, be that person, that signs up and becomes the 40th or the 50th person. We would absolutely love for you to.
Yeah, we're gonna search out Greg Locke and take him down.
Oh, Paul, do you know how many tickets we could sell? I'll find.
Oh, you know what? On that Sunday morning, we could all go to Greg Locke's church. It's not that far away.
I will not be attending.
Live tweet it.
Hard pass. No, actually, I'm flying out at 5 a.m. on Sunday morning.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I thought it was 5 p.m.
Well, so it was supposed to be, but then with everything going on here, as far as, our community here and everything like that, it was kind of hard to stay away on Sunday. So, I'll be flying back. I will unfortunately have to miss, Gregory Tiberius Locke's, sermon on Sunday. But y'all will have to let me know how it is. I hear it's a hoot. So,
It's funny. We have two teams in our fantasy league named after Greg Locke. He's very popular with our deconstruction crew.
He is very popular with a lot of people. Some places he's famous, other places he's infamous.
Yes.
Yeah, more infamous. Yeah. All right. So we will not be on next week, but hopefully we'll see you in Nashville on October 1st.
All right. Good night.